Hello, everyone. This is Thomas Ng speaking to you from the ESG Business Institute. The ESG Business Institute is a global network of ESG professionals. Currently, we have members from more than 20 countries spread across 6 continents. To celebrate International Women's Day 2024, we are running a series of interviews with prominent women leaders during the month of March. We are kicking this off with Dr. Astrid Tuminez. I first met Dr. Tuminez almost 15 years ago when she was the Deputy Dean of the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy at the National University of Singapore. We were sitting together on the board of the Institute for Disability and Public Policy, which was funded by the Nippon Foundation. I'm so pleased that we are again sitting together on a board, this time with the ESG Business Institute. Currently the president of Utah Valley University, Dr. Tuminez's journey from a life of poverty in a small village in the Philippines to global leadership is a testament to resilience, determination, and an unwavering commitment to education. Dr. Tuminez's dedication to unlocking human potential through education is evident in her life story, marked by receiving a scholarship at the age of 5 and advocating for its transformative power. With degrees from Brigham Young University, Harvard University, and MIT, Dr. Tuminez has made significant contributions in academia, public policy, and corporate leadership, including peace negotiations in the Philippines and a role as Microsoft's Regional Director for Southeast Asia. Prior to that, she was the founding Vice Dean of Research for the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy at the National University of Singapore. Today, we have the privilege of engaging in a fireside chat with Astrid, exploring the diverse chapters of her extraordinary journey. Astrid, if I may kick this off by asking you, what role did education play in shaping your dreams and aspirations as a child?
Education has been pivotal to my whole life, not only in my childhood. I was born in a farming village in the Philippines and my parents were really poor. There weren't many resources to educate their children. All of our relatives and all of our neighbors were peasant farmers. And so when I was 2 years old, my mother moved all of us, by us meaning 6 children at that time, to the city. And the only place we could afford to live in was the slums. I was very lucky and blessed at the age of 5 when Catholic nuns from the Daughters of Charity found my family in the slums and offered us places for free in their school. And so at the age of 5, I learned to read, I learned to spell, I learned to count. I began to read everything that I could lay my hands on in the library. And that really, in a sense, blew up my mind, blew it wide open to know that there is a big world out there, that I was a capable person. It gave me that understanding that I was good at reading, that I could learn math, that I could have many adventures through books. So education really from that very early age up to the time that I went to high school, college, graduate school, and now being a university president, I still think of it as a superpower, as one variable that could actually open the opportunity to everyone to have a better life and live a more dignified and productive life.
Thank you for that. I recall you telling me your rather profound stories about growing up in the slums in Manila and living in abject poverty. They were really quite profound stories. Let's now fast forward a little bit. Having built a life and a career in the US, and then given an opportunity for peace relations back in the Philippines, how did you overcome the challenges of pivoting your approach to serve people?
It was in 2003, after having lived in the United States for about 2 decades, that I received a call from one of my mentors in New York City, Ambassador Frank Wisner. Frank had been ambassador of the United States to the Philippines, Egypt, Zambia, and India, and was a person that I really looked up to. So Frank phoned me and said, "Hey, would you like to take a job in the southern Philippines?" And it really had to do with the Muslims of the Philippines, who are called Moros. And at the time, the United States was very concerned about Al-Qaeda or terrorist infiltration of the Moro insurgent movement in the Philippines. The Moros have been ill-treated for centuries in their own land, in their own country, if you will, in their own sultanates. And so there's been this long-standing conflict between them and the government of the Philippines, and also between Moro tribes. And my initial reaction was, I'm not qualified to do that. I'm not qualified to go to the southern Philippines. But my mentor believed in me, and I decided to do the job. It was funded by the US Congress, and for about 4 years, I traveled a lot to Mindanao in the southern Philippines. And looking back, it's actually one of the most meaningful jobs I've ever done. First of all, it redefined for me what it meant to be a Filipino. I developed a lot of compassion, understanding, and empathy for the history of the southern Philippines, for the minoritization of the Muslims, and how my own group as Christians had really done them a disservice. We were very prejudicial. And so I understood how the conflict came about, issues of land, identity, economics, religion, and leadership. And it really enriched my life, and I'm very grateful for my Moro brothers and sisters for opening my mind and my spirit and my heart to things that I very poorly understood. And I think in the world today, where diversity is something that we emphasize, that people are coming from different beliefs, different life experiences, different countries, languages, how do we develop more compassion and empathy for one another? And beyond empathy and compassion, how do we create more transparent and fairer laws and policies so that we don't abuse other people? For when we abuse other people, it leads to harmful consequences that harm all of us and harm our children and grandchildren. So I'm very grateful that I had that opportunity to work in the southern Philippines. I feel that I became a better leader because of that experience.
Your amazing story continues, Astrid, and there is more, isn't there? From international relations to peace negotiations and to corporate leadership, your career path has been diverse. What motivates you to embrace such varied opportunities and demonstrate such agility?
I actually joke sometimes that I have severe attention deficit, and that's why my career has been what I call zigzaggy, in the sense that I have now my career has spanned 5 different countries and very distinct sectors. Currently, I'm a university president, but my first big job really was with Harvard University, running a project called Strengthening Democratic Institutions in the former Soviet Union. I lived in Moscow. And after that job, I worked in philanthropy in New York at Carnegie Corporation of New York, and then moved to Wall Street, where I worked for AIG, American International Group, first in credit risk, and then secondly, I moved to AIG Global Investment and did venture capital in biotechnology. After that, I worked in Hong Kong and Singapore, again, partly in academia as a vice dean for the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy at the National University of Singapore, and then as a regional director for corporate, external, and legal affairs for Microsoft in Southeast Asia, spanning the countries of ASEAN and then a few countries in South Asia. So people are kind of interested as to how this career shaped out the way it did, because after all, my undergraduate major was in Russian literature and international relations. So I had political science and literature. I have a master's in Soviet studies, and then a PhD from MIT in political science. I think there are many ways to do a career. There are people who pick one thing and they want to be masters at that and they stick to one thing. For me, that didn't really work. I would get bored, or I feel like I have mastery, I need to go do something else. And I sort of have certain rules that I follow. One is, will I like the people that I'm working with, and I'm agnostic as to the sector or the industry. Number two, will it pay fairly well? And number three, will it allow me to contribute meaningfully? It's been really important to me in my career that I give back, so that whatever it is I'm doing, whether that's technology or banking or academia or philanthropy, that I am contributing in meaningful ways, because I believe very strongly that life is short. A good life means building a good death. And so those things are constantly in the front of my mind. And I believe that today, in the age of the fourth industrial revolution and AI, artificial intelligence, and the ability to do many things that we couldn't do before, and with technology really informing everything from the financial, biological, political, economic, it may be more common for people to have the career that I've had, which is very varied, that is no longer going to be linear. Because AI itself, for example, will append the things that we know and the ways that we do things. So I'm grateful that I've had a very exciting career, in my opinion. It's taken me to different countries, different places. I have learned from every sector that I've worked in, and I try to synthesize all of that learning where I am today, running the largest university in the state of Utah with nearly 45,000 students.
Many years ago, when you first told me that you studied Russian as an undergraduate, I was really quite intrigued. But after thinking about it for a while, I started to believe that perhaps this helped you get noticed, needed, and hence enhanced your career path. Can you please elaborate on that?
I was in my 20s when I had the opportunity to lead the office of the Harvard Project on Strengthening Democratic Institutions. The project was led by Professor Graham Allison, who was the founding dean of the Harvard Kennedy School. When it started in the early 90s, the Soviet Union was still intact as a country. Communism still existed as a operational system of government. And basically in my 20s, because of that job, I had the opportunity to have a front row seat to the implosion of a political, social, and economic system. And I learned many things from it. The most important thing that I learned was humility. Being in my 20s and being so gung-ho like everybody else, believing that the end of communism spelled all good things suddenly happening in the former Soviet Union. But that wasn't the case. It's very difficult to undo an economic system and suddenly put something very new in its place. A lot of people suffered. We are seeing a war today between Russia and Ukraine. And I think that the roots of that war go back to the implosion of the former Soviet Union, and the ways that structures, both political, economic, and security, didn't really work as we had hoped they would. I had the opportunity to meet Mikhail Gorbachev several times. I have a great admiration for him. I think that he was a very big factor in the relatively peaceful ending of the Soviet Union. He was a leader who wasn't afraid to undertake difficult reforms, although it proved too difficult in the end. He was the first communist leader who was seen in public with a real relationship with his wife. His wife had a PhD. Raisa Maximovna was a true partner for President Gorbachev. I got to know the foreign minister at the time, Eduard Shevardnadze, and I also gained an appreciation for how difficult it is to lead. Personally, for me, I learned in my 20s because of the context in the Soviet Union and the post-Soviet space, Russia, where there was so much turbulence, and there are days you couldn't buy sugar, or you couldn't buy paper, or there was no gasoline. You really had to be agile. And I was tiny, I was very young looking. I had to learn to be credible as a leader. I had to learn to walk into a room and use all of my physicality, whatever I had, all 89 pounds of me, to occupy that space and be taken seriously. It helped that I spoke fluent Russian. It helped that I had a PhD, so I would use the title doctor. And it helped that I worked for Harvard University, so the card that had Harvard, people wanted to talk to you. So in tactical and strategic ways. Women, I think I learned lessons for women and leadership that, I try to share with others who are just building their careers. So that was an amazing part of my journey, and it also set me up really for the rest of my career, because I gained leadership skills, but I also met people who helped me subsequently with practically all the other jobs that I later had in my life.
So, moving on, what are your core leadership principles that guide your approach as president of Utah Valley University? How has this global perspective influenced your approach to leadership and education?
When I came to Utah Valley University in 2018, the most important thing to me was to build a culture. In a sense, it's really people and culture that create successful and sustainable organizations. And so the first thing that I did was to articulate our core values: exceptional care, exceptional accountability, and exceptional results. Why are these values important? We are a large public university and we're open admission. We admit everybody. So you have to begin with exceptional care for every student who walks through our doors, because they range from extremely prepared students to people who barely finished high school, or non-traditional students who are 50 years old and just starting college. After exceptional care, you must have exceptional accountability. We have to bring our best selves to work every single day. We have to use our resources wisely and effectively. We must be capable of hard and direct conversations, giving one another feedback on what's working and what's not working, and how can we iterate, how can we improve. And finally, exceptional results. I've always thought, having gone to Harvard and MIT, I understand what it's like to be excellent in spaces like that, but this is a very different space. And yet in this space, we will achieve exceptional results. So holding everybody accountable to measurable goals. And of course, the best goal is just empowering our students so that they leave this campus better prepared to handle both work and life. And how have I brought a global perspective? UVU is a Utah university, and Utah has been the #1 state economy in the United States for many years. We have a very active startup economy. And I think one of the most important things that I bring to the university in my leadership is a diverse perspective, because I did not come into this job with a Utah perspective. I came into this job as someone who has worked in 5 different countries and has worked in many different sectors. So I think I'm able to bring this broader perspective. I'm able to ask more useful questions. I'm also able to define excellence in ways that are not just limited to our service region or the county where we're in or the state of Utah. My comparative perspective includes Singapore, it includes Hong Kong, the Philippines, Russia, Vietnam, Indonesia, the markets that I've spent a lot of time in during my time in Asia. And so I think bringing that diverse perspective is very helpful. And I think from a global perspective, as an Asian woman, I'm also proud that I am here leading and representing people of color, representing women, that I can walk into a room and be taken seriously, and that people should get used to the idea that anybody who looks like anything, you can be a leader and you can come from the tough and difficult circumstances that I came from. And it doesn't really matter where you started. What matters is what do you do with the opportunities given to you, and then how do you give back? How do you scale the way that you can give back to empower others? So in many ways, I'm a unique university president because I came from a technology company, and then I also came from Asia. But all of that, I think, is actually, it's all an advantage. I mean, I think nothing in my life or in my global background is not an asset when it comes to leading Utah Valley University.
It has been great speaking with you today, Astrid. Thank you for taking the time. In closing, if I may ask you for your personal advice to young women, particularly those who are facing adversity and/or from underprivileged backgrounds who dream of making a difference in the world and for themselves, what would you say to them?
My wisdom is limited because, I am a one case study, but I do like to speak with younger people and women in particular. And if you're coming from a particularly difficult background, I would say just begin and say, this is a blessing, and I'm grateful for this difficult background. No matter how difficult your circumstances are, and I have worked with many domestic helpers in Hong Kong and Singapore, for example, who live really, really difficult lives, and many are so poor and many are abused, and they don't know the pathway forward. And one of the things that I tell people in hard circumstances is to dream. Dreams are free. You don't need permission. You don't need to pay. You have to ask yourself, what is my dream? Where do I want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now? How do I surround myself with people who could help me fulfill this dream? So dreams are free. Second, there is no substitute to hard work. I think one of the lessons in my life is that, I try to outwork everybody, and that sometimes we have to be careful not to abuse ourselves and we have a heart attack and die while working. But really just to say, I am a learner. I will put in the work to understand X. I will put in the work to solve problems for my boss. I will put in the work to succeed as an entrepreneur or a business person. So dreams, number one is, dream all the time. Dreams are free. Number two, put in the hard work. And maybe number three, I would say, tune out noise. For women in particular, it's really difficult. There's a lot of noise out there. There's less noise from men. Men are told to go out there, go do what you want. For women, there's a lot of noise. If you're not married, people don't like you. If you're married, they also don't like you. If you have children, they don't like you because you have all responsibilities. If you don't have children, something's wrong with you. You have to dress this way or dress that way. You have to be beautiful. It's so ridiculous. Like there's so much more social and cultural baggage put on women. And so, as a woman and a person of color who's built a career internationally, I think one of my greatest skills that I've developed is to tune out noise. I've been insulted, I've been treated as a sex worker or a maid, and I've learned to ask myself, when do I call it out? When do I just dismiss it? When do I laugh at it? When do I just say that noise is not important to me because I have more important things to do? And so those dreams, the hard work, tuning out noise. And when you make a mistake, just pat yourself on the back and say, hey, that was a good effort. And when I was younger, I was incredibly hard on myself when I made mistakes. And that was one of the things that I regret the most. I should have just danced around my mistakes and laughed at them because mistakes help us to learn. So they're actually a good thing. So to all the young women who may listen to this, dream for yourself, work at it, tune out noise, and believe that you have something important to contribute, whatever stage of your career you may be at the moment.
And there you have it. Dream or have goals, work hard at them, and rise above all the noise and obstacles along the way. Setbacks and adversities can and will make us stronger. Thank you again, Dr. Tuminez. Look forward to seeing you again at Utah Valley University next month. This is Thomas Ng signing out from the ESG Business Institute. Watch out for our upcoming interviews with prominent women leaders in the course of this month. Thank you.